Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of Men's Equal Rights, M.E.R. We thank you for joining us this evening. We're excited about this show. One of our very special friends and an important man in the community is here to join us today and tell us his story. But before we get that started, I'd like to welcome our panelists to the forum. There he is, you know him, Mr. John Rockmore. How are you, sir?
I'm absolutely fine. I am absolutely blessed. Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you, Mr. Evan Lionel.
Good to see you as well. Have you seen the kids today?
I have not seen the kids today and have called twice. Have not heard anything from kids today.
Well, I'm sure you'll hear from them soon. And without further ado, a very talented founder of the group Chidenity is in the building with us, one of our experts. You know her, Lala Justice. Hey, Lala, how are you?
I'm doing good. How is everybody doing this evening?
Great. You look absolutely gorgeous as usual.
Thank you.
And hopefully you're not fighting that today. You, Lala, you will look so beautiful and then go, I don't feel like that. And then I tell you, we don't see ourselves as others see us. You are always gorgeous and highly intelligent. That's an unusual combination. You already know that. Sometimes there are people who are super gorgeous and then you try to talk to them and they don't have law degrees and all of that stuff. So not only are you gorgeous, you're just, wow, super, super intelligent, especially when it comes to family law. And that is what this forum is all about, bringing families together. We desire 50-50 custody now because we want what is truly in the best interest of our children. But I spoke to a friend of mine who's our special guest today who believes 50-50 custody is just not enough. And that is our topic for today. Is 50-50 custody enough for our children? And what exactly is 50-50 custody? We'll get into that. But right now, we'd like to bring on our very special guest, and he can tell us his story and why he believes 50-50 custody is not enough. Welcome to the forum, the one and only Pastor Lester Berry, comedian, writer, just Hollywood legend, been around this town for 25 plus years. I've known him and worked with him. He is one of the greats. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Lester Berry.
Evan, I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way.
What do you mean you don't feel that way, Lester?
I was kind of on the Lala thing. I was kind of playing on that whole thing.
Oh.
How you tell her how beautiful she is, she says, I don't feel that way. You know, yeah. He's a legend. He's a legend. I don't feel that way.
You don't feel like a legend? You
I could
still...
clarify that. Cap and sweatpants girl.
Okay.
Wow.
I'll mess with you, brother. It's good to be a part of it. Good to be a part of the discussion. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And from my hometown, from Chicago. Brother Pastor, tell the folks about you. First of all, we met through comedy, and I found out that you actually grew up in my area and knew my older brother, and you guys were friends. So you are originally from Chicago. How did you get involved in comedy coming from, you know, I know you were on the debate team, as you stated earlier, you graduated from USC. Tell us how you go from USC to the host of BET's Comic View.
Well, first let me say, your brother and I were not friends. He used to terrorize our block. That's what it was. I don't know if we can really call that friends, but
okay. He was terrorizing y'all. Well, he terrorized me at the house, so I understand.
Yeah, he was. He not an extreme, not in the worst way, but he just kind of mobbed through our block, like, yeah, what? I'm on your block, and we who is that dude? And he was short and strong, so it wasn't like we could do nothing with him. You know what I mean? So
I definitely remember the days.
Yeah, I remember him very well, and just moved to California in 1980, and attended San Dimas High School for a minute. Ended up at Long Beach Poly for the next 2.5 years. Graduated at Long Beach Poly, then went to Cerritos College and got on the speech and debate team, and ended up with a scholarship at ex post facto scholarship at USC, meaning they gave it to me after the fact. They didn't offer me a scholarship to come there. They actually told me don't come. But one of my boys' greatest influences in my life, Mark Christopher Lawrence, was a year ahead of me. And he had told me, just come and compete. And when they see how good you are, they'll give you the scholarship. And that's what happened. And so, so that's how that happened. And then one of the areas of speech competition is called Speech to Entertain, which is you stand up to speak in a competitive environment. But it's not enough to be funny when you're entertaining. You have to be meaningful. There has to be some type of point or message or significance. There has to be some thesis to the presentation. And so when I was doing speech, one of the criticisms of me was that I was too funny and I didn't have enough meaning and purpose in my speech. And oddly, when I started doing comedy, they were saying you weren't funny enough. You sound too much like a speaker. So,
wow.
So yeah. But coming from that competition, going to colleges all over the country, up and down the state of California, I've kind of brought that competition mindset to comedy. And I doing the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition, and I took first place, and D.L. Hughley took second. And I did the Long Beach Comedy Crunch, and Chris Tucker took second. I took first. And of course, I did Star Search, where my first victim was Dave Chappelle. And that was fresh out of college, where to me, I was doing a competition every other week. And I guess they were doing 1 or 2 a year. And so just came out on that tear, and always saw Comic View as the next big competition, trying to be the host of that. But knowing that I was called to ministry, and so there was always that disconnect between what I knew my calling was versus what I enjoyed. And now that I know that both was my calling, because my calling was to be who I am, which is an inspirational comedian and a pastor. And so I prayed and I asked God, I said, Lord, if you'll just let me be the host of Comic View, I will. And if I don't make it after that, then I will go back to pastoring. And God said, okay, you can be the host of Comic View. And I ended up being the host of Comic View in the year of the boycott. So,
the year we were all fighting with each other.
The year the world turned on BET Comic View. And one of the things I used to hear was kind of a blessing and a curse, is that with all of the great comedians staying away from Comic View, they would say that the show this year would totally suck if it wasn't for Lester Barrett, so that's kind of a blessing and a curse. And it took me a very, very long time to live that down. Not complaining at all, but I do believe I was blackballed in Hollywood, and on some level, I believe I still am. But that's okay, because, I prayed and I asked God for what I wanted. He gave it to me. And then he said, all right, get to work, get back to ministry. And so I did. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but that's how I came from Chicago to being host of Comic View.
And so now you're a pastor.
Yes.
You got married back in the day. I remember when you got married, and
yes.
That was your first wife. And I remember her as well. And you guys had a son.
Right.
And then you got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, you got divorced. And then you and I were talking about, in the divorce, we desire 50-50 custody now. And you were telling me 50-50 custody is not enough. Why would you say that?
Well, let me just add right there. Interestingly, I used to always go up to Chris Tucker and tell him what a beautiful girlfriend he had, and that was just because I admired him. And, you know, and I just like, man, that dude got it going on. He's funny, beautiful girlfriend. I always tell him how beautiful his girlfriend was. And then one day he just came up to me and pulled me outside and he said, hey, you know, he was very serious. Like, you know, hey man, why you always talking about how beautiful my girl is? And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I just compliment you, man. I just admired you. I didn't understand the hostility. But then after I got married to my first wife, Evan was always coming up to me saying, man, your wife is so beautiful. And I said, Evan, let me holler at you outside. Let me holler at you outside for a minute, man. Why are you always talking about how beautiful my wife is? And so I didn't really understand. You know, I was slow in school too. So I didn't really understand why Chris took it that way until good-looking, should have been a fashion model Evan kept telling me how beautiful my wife was. And I said, Evan, let me ask you something, brother. Why you always talking about how beautiful my wife is, man?
I remember that.
and so I just thought that whole thing was funny. But yeah, I think 50-50 custody is not enough because I think it gives us a false sense that we're doing what needs to be done. It also gives us a false sense that we're doing our best when we're really not. If we go back to, you know, in our hard wiring, you know, you're supposed to be a husband who loves his wife the way Christ loves the church and gave himself for it. You know, and what does it mean to love her? To be patient, kind, long-suffering, all of those things that we know love to mean. And so our children are hardwired in such a way that they need to see that. And so they need to see daddy loving their mother, and they need to see the mother respecting their father. And when you decide to break up and you have 50-50 custody, you think, okay, yeah, I'm doing my part. And the reality is your kids still need to see daddy loving mama and needs to see mama respecting daddy. And it doesn't mean love and respect on a level of, oh, we're going to get back together. And I know that's always the fear. I don't want to be nice to her. She'll think I'm trying to get with her. I don't want to be nice to him. I don't want to be respectful to him. He'll come over here knocking on my door. So I know all that is a part of it. But the disconnect is now that you have 50-50 custody, you think you're doing enough. And the reality is you're still falling way short of loving that woman in front of that child. And that child is still not seeing the mother respecting that father in front of them as well. So that's the real reason. It lulls us into believing we're doing enough, and the truth is we're not.
And so in light of that, when you broke up with your wife, and what was your time like? Did you have to go to court about custody and visitation rights and all of that? Did you have to work that out through the court, or did you two decide that together?
Well, you know, we was Black. We was very Black. I'm gonna say that. You know how Black people are. We never really get a divorce until we broke up and we filed some papers and we thought it went through and it didn't.
Wow.
And then years later, you go down to the court because you ready to get married again, and you say, "Oh, I need a copy of my divorce papers," and they go, "You ain't divorced. Shut up. Stop it. Go back there and get my paper. Quit playing." You know? Yeah. So that's how that happened. But to answer your question, she and I just kind of worked out between us that neither one of us wanted to pay any type of child support to the other, and so we just agreed to 50-50 custody. He would stay with me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He would stay with her Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And that seventh day, we would allow him to stay with his grandparents because he really loved being over there anyway. So and the pickup and drop off happened at school. Meaning on my days, I just picked him up from school, and on her days, I dropped him off, and she picked him up from school. And so he spent those years, starting at about 5 years old, he spent half his time with me, half the time with her, and the seventh day he spent with a grandfather.
So, Lala, what exactly, according to the courts, is 50-50 custody? That was their version of what 50-50 custody is, and I actually like that. I actually think if more parents did it like the way Lester and his ex did, it would be, you know, happier families, because both sides get to see their grandchild and, you know, their cousin, their, you know, that sort of thing. What is actual 50-50 custody to the courts?
That's interesting because depending on the judge defines on depending what they're going to define for 50-50. Generally, each parent would have standard or expanded possession. It just depends on the order. And it sounds like he had an awesome structure, by the way. I want to point that out. That's typically standard where each parent will pick up the kid and then drop the kid off at school. The other parent picks up the kid and so on and so on. So 50-50 for the court, it would be like equal access and possession, equal standard possession as it relates to access. So when I say access, that means the medical and educational information along with the possession schedule. So 50-50 is you have joint managing conservators where both parents have the ability to make decisions. If it's not 50-50, then they have what they call exclusive rights to make decisions and exclusive rights to designate where the child lives. So 50-50, it honestly these days, it depends on what's agreed to by the court. They're changing what is supposed to be equal into, I would say, creative biased. That's the best way that I could put it. So is there a term that we have for 50-50 now in the court system? Everything's up for negotiation.
What is creative bias?
Can I interject real quick?
Go ahead.
Just in terms of time, what I have discovered is that a typical arrangement with the court would be a week and a weekend, meaning each parent would have the child a week and a weekend, and then there was always what's called a custodial parent, meaning even though you have this arrangement, that one of the parents is actually the custodial parent. So that's just I don't know if it's still that way or not, but that was
in your case. Who was the custodial parent then? Were you the custodial parent?
We was Black and wasn't divorced, and so we didn't have none of that. We were, I know folk broke up 11 years. They ain't never got a divorce, So, but they say they divorced, and they say they divorced, and it ain't until they get ready to get married again that they discover or remember that they're not. So, yeah.
Wow. Mr. Rockmore had a question. Hold on for a sec, Lala. Mr. Rockmore had a question. Is it for Lala?
Oh, no, this involves Lala, though, for sure, as everything that we talk about does. Okay. Mr. Lesser, first to start out, other than the grace of God, because I know you're a man of God and love God, how are we supposed to do this? Because, number one, when you see Lala, she always talks to us about strategy and how people strategize, how they're supposed to get their child support and so forth, okay? But the pressure with lawyers, pressure of loved ones and girlfriends that come out and say, girl, you need to get what you can get. And then there's already an assumption of the man cannot take care of the child. So what you have, I promise you, every male watching this is going, how do I get that? Because we would love to have, at the very least, I assure you, Mr. Evan, at the very least, I'd like to have that.
Yeah.
But it's almost, they make it almost impossible for people to have that. Now, I know that you're a God-fearing man and probably came with a God-fearing woman. You were able to put that together. But it kind of blows Miss Lala's strategy out the water because, and here's the other thing. As soon as she would get upset with you and you would say, well, we were co-parenting and this and that. And they would say, well, you know what? All that money you just spent in your co-parenting existence, that was just a gift now. And she can actually go back and get back payments from the time you guys said that you were apart. Am I wrong, Miss Lala?
You're accurate. You're accurate.
So please give us the strategy on how you made that happen, because that may work for other men.
Well, again, that's not what happened with us. We fast forward to, a young lady I was dating, not my wife, but a young lady I was dating at the time and thinking about marrying, and I discovered that I wasn't actually divorced. Once I discovered it, then my son's mother and I tried to make it right. Okay, let's take care of this, do this right, and make this divorce official. But there was a period of time where I was unemployed and she was making six figures. Okay, and so I asked her to help me take care of our son when he was with me. And she's like, oh, well, I'm not helping you do anything. You know, our arrangement was what it was. And so I said, but, you know, I'm unemployed. You make six figures. I mean, give the boy some money when he comes over just so he can eat. I just want to make sure he can eat. You know, I'm not asking to pay my bills or anything like that. And she said, no, you're supposed to feed him, that he's on your time. You know, maybe you should go get a job or something. And I'm like, well, that's what unemployed is. You don't have a job, you know. And so this ended up being an issue in the court. And she wanted to assist. She wanted to pay me nothing. And I wanted her to pay me anything she was willing to pay, which was nothing. And we, of course, went to mediation, which is downstairs in the court. And in effect, what the mediator said is, Mr. Berry, you're not going to get as much money as you think you're going to get. And the reality is I didn't have a figure I wanted. I just wanted her to help me feed him. I just didn't want him to go without food. And they said to her that, you don't want to pay him anything, but chances are the court's going to make you pay him something. You make six figures and he right now is unemployed. And so it'd be better if you guys worked out between you. And she said, well, she doubled down and said, no, I'm not paying him anything. He's the man. And of course, my position was that it doesn't matter if I'm the man, you know, equal rights in the courts. And I just don't see a court making me pay when I don't have any money. And I don't believe a court will allow you making six figures plus to not pay to help me. And the mediators told her the same thing. And what happened was we got upstairs and we started disagreeing over how much time the child was actually spending with me versus how much he was spending with her. Because as the child got older, our arrangement meant nothing. If he wanted to be over there on a certain day and time, he just say, Daddy, I'm staying here. And I'm like, yeah, but that's my day, you know? And he was like, yeah, but, you know, so now he's suffering because of our arrangement, because he's not getting to do what he wants to do. And so her father and her lawyer, they argued that our arrangement was not 50-50. And the judge finally said, you know what, get the child in here. You know, I need to speak to the child. And at that point, I got hired by the church where I am now. And once I got hired, I had a job and I just dropped the request because I didn't really want any money from her. I just wanted him to eat while I was unemployed. And so the judge granted the divorce and nobody ever paid anyone anything. But, you know, and I'm not speaking, I hate to speak for her, but I think that she really feels like she was robbed. And I think that there are probably people who tell her, girl, you could have got X amount of dollars from him. And how could you let him get away with that? And there, you know, she might feel some type of way that I got out of my child's childhood, never paying a dime to her, even though I did take care of him on the days he was with me. So,
wow, why is it that women think that it's okay for us to pay child support, but not okay for them to pay child support? Lala, would you like to take that one?
Oh, that's a very judgmental statement, but
what was judgmental? Go ahead, Lala.
Well, what I can say is that the system is set for a particular presentation, if you will, that the man will pay and that the woman will be the mother. She's going to be there taking care of and providing mainly for the child. So because of that strategy and because it's been implemented for so long, then yes, there are women that believe, why should I have to pay? Why should I have to do this? The man, he's supposed to pay. He needs to be the one to pay the child support. So yes, that's what they're being sold. That's that information and that strategy that they're being given. And just like you had stated earlier, Mr. Rockmore, that, you know, they're actually being told this. So when they are conversing with an aunt, a cousin, a friend, they're telling them, get that money, girl. You know, he's going to have to pay child support the minute you guys go into court. So it's preset and we just have to change the way that we think.
But you know what? None of my boys came to me when all the kids were staying with me and I didn't get child support. None of my boys came up and said, yo, homie, you better go get that money. Nobody said anything remotely like that. It was just, they're with their father and that's it.
Right.
Hey, Evan, we went to counseling over this, because long before it became a court issue, it was just a battle between us. And we went to Christian counseling, and our Christian counselor, female, of course, she agreed that my son's mother should not have to pay me child support. And I said, well, how's he supposed to eat? And she said, well, maybe he should spend less time with you. I was like, what? I said, and so I said, if this situation were reversed and I made 6 figures and she was unemployed and she was asking me for child support, would you tell her maybe the child should spend less time with you? And she's like, and you gotta understand, I come from USC debate background. So I just flipped that thing on her and asked her, is this what you would tell her? And she said, no. I said, well, if it's not what you would tell her, why are you telling it to me? And she said, because you're the man. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need to talk to your supervisor. You know what I mean? So that's what I said, because, you know, and we never went back to them. Well, we never went back there. And what the supervisor, who is the department head, because these were PhD students at a Christian college, he said, I'll meet with them from now on. And again, like I said, before we went back to counseling, the whole thing was resolved because I got a job.
And you said that it affected your child. So we'd like to know why you believe 50-50 custody is not enough for the child, because you said you believe your son would be behaving differently had you two stayed in the marriage.
Well, you know, again, and my son's a grown man in all 50 states. And so, I don't want to put his issues out on Front Street and talk about him. But as I was saying before the call, we were talking offline, and I was saying that, you know, it's our job and our responsibility as parents to train up our children in the way that they should go. And I just don't believe you can train your child when you only have them 50% of the time. You can't do anything to its fullest when you're only there, when you're only present for half of it. So I think it, and especially men who, you know, we don't believe that our son is the man that he ought to be. Well, who do you blame for that when you were only there half the time? And so you fall back on, yeah, I did my part. I was there half the time, but he needed you to fully raise him to be a man, and you didn't do that. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. And as I was telling someone offline, you know, you got 50-50 suggests that he has 2 heads in his life. And we know Bishop Noel Jones told us anything with 2 heads is a freak.
Mr. Rockmore, do you agree with that?
You know what? I do what I don't. I do because our emphasis is 50-50. At the minimum, we should at least be equal. So the 50-50 isn't necessarily the time that we're going to spend with that child, but we want to have equal say in how our child is raised and how they're loved. You're never going to get 50-50. What are you going to do? Oh, sorry, son, we're at the stop sign and this is the 50 mark, so we can't go further. There's no sense. Your heart's never going to let you do that. But we're saying, as you're illustrating, we just want at least equality. Not the amount of time we can spend with the child, but equal say. Equal.
In everything.
In everything.
Right, but Evan, he's talking about, I'm sorry, what's the brother's name again? What's the name?
That's John Rockmore.
John is.
And don't forget, because I will be coming to Lakewood. I'm coming up to see you up at Lakewood.
Yes, sir. Evan, John is answering the question in terms of what we want, and he's not answering what the child needs. And so we're really answering 2 different questions.
The child needs 100%. The child needs 100%, but the court limits you. The court labels you and limits you in what you can do.
No, you limited.
But here's the question. Let me interject. The question is, can he be there 100% of the time if they are no longer together as a couple?
No, he can't. But the court doesn't limit you. You limited yourself when you gave up on that marriage. You limited yourself because there's no way for you to be there, as Evan has pointed out, 100% of the time when you're now out of that home. And as we all, Evan, you know, most fathers don't get 50-50 custody. So most of them are trying to they have expectations that they're going to train up this child in the way that it should go, and they're there 10% of the time. And then they want to blame it on the mother. And the reality is, in many cases, it was you, in many cases, not all, that couldn't find a way to get along with your child's mother long enough to bring that child at least closer to adulthood. So that's my take.
Lala?
Well, first I want to say that I love exactly all of the feedback right now. It's actually really good because he's correct. When it comes to 50-50, there really is 50-50. Standard court orders, you have a child every first, third, and fifth weekend. You alternate spring, you alternate Thanksgiving, you alternate Christmas. You know, one parent gets extended summer, the other parent doesn't. You know, and these court arrangements, in most standard cases, they have that the order is subject to change if the parents can come together and agree. So if you think in terms of that, you can have 75%. You know, I think if we can come together as parents with a higher level of consciousness that we're not going to allow an order to dictate how much contribution we're putting into their lives, then the order becomes null and void. You can have the order in place for legal purposes, but what you contribute and what you agree to together collectively, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. That's why they took away the whole, this one's going to be primary custodian. They brought it back to joint managing conservator so that each parent would feel like they're having a joint say. And at the end of the day, they could still have 50-50, but they could have more. Like that is correct. It's up to each parent if they want to agree in writing. That is in every order, unless the parent is dangerous, then the order becomes subjective.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of that, the whole process of vilifying many fathers, that's what the court allows to happen in order to keep them out of the child's life. They vilify the dad. Do they do that to women as well? Vilify them? Did that happen in your case, Lala?
Yes.
well, the public needs to know that they do that to women too.
They do that to women. They do. And again, this is not, you know, this strategy is an equal offender. And that is something that I always tell people. It knows no boundaries, gender, it's none of that. It happens to women, and it depends on the circumstances, who has the most money, what the relationship is like, did they get enough votes that season, you know, within the judicial system. It is not biased to just men or women, it's equal.
Wow. Go ahead, Pastor Barry.
You know, it's a strategy, and again, it sounds like Lala has some legal background, but you know, people in general don't know how to break up without vilifying each other. Generally, you know, outside of court, having nothing to do with court. You know, I counsel a lot of people. I give advice to a lot of people, and I have rarely, I think maybe once or twice, have I seen a couple literally break up for what is apparently no reason. A lot of times people decide to break up and then they start making the case for the breakup. Okay, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't want to be with this person no more. I don't know how to just walk away. So I got to start arguments. I got to start fights. I got to start picking at this person. I have to start not getting along. If I can get them to hit me, you know what I mean? And most people don't know how. It's kind of like even in churches, people don't know how to just leave their church and go to another one. They got to find something wrong with the pastor and then go to another church, you know? And so generally that's kind of how people are wired. We just don't know how to amicably decide to go in a different direction. And I think that spills over into court as opposed to the court causing it. I think emotionally, psychologically, that's something we do. You know, we did that with our girlfriends in high school and wasn't no court. We fought with them and then broke up, because if we tried to break up with them without a reason, they're going to beg us to stay and we're going to feel guilty. Like, why are you breaking up? This is perfect. And you don't know how to say, I just want to break up. Most of the time, people just don't do that.
Well, usually it's not one thing, but a handful of things. But you would have to agree that most things end badly. Otherwise, they would not end.
Honestly, in my case, which is what I told Lala, we were fine. We sat down, worked out our divorce, did a vision board, the whole nine. talked quietly together. We agreed that it was time. And then my ex got in touch with a corrupt attorney. And that's when the game flipped in my life. And so she changed after we sat down and worked it all out together. This attorney influenced her to change and actually encouraged her to try to have me murdered by the police. That's how cold this game is, this family court game. And a lot of attorneys, this is the game they play. They will tell the woman, do you know that all you got to do is say he hit you and we can take the kids forever. He doesn't ever have to see them again. All you have to do is say he hit you. We can take him out of the home and the house will be yours. It's to get the upper hand. It's a strategy to get the upper hand in the divorce. Is that used a lot, Lala, in the cases that you deal with in Chidenity?
Every day, to the extent where a woman could ask a man to come over to hang up a picture. And the minute he gets over there, she's like, come over here, hang up this picture and pick up the kids. And when he arrives, she has bruises all over her face. She's been hitting herself. And then she calls the cops. Look at what he just did to me. You know, so it happens quite frequently. It's preset. The woman is scared. She doesn't want to lose custody. It could be that the father has more of a stable environment. He may be getting ready to get remarried. Whatever threat there is, the first defense is, well, I have to get a restraining order. I need to say that he's dangerous so that I can get the upper hand now. So yes, that does happen. And unfortunately for most men, and it is a sad thing because most men are like, oh, you need me to hang up a picture? Sure, I'll come right over. They don't think that they're going over there for a trap.
That was my case. Go ahead.
Yeah. And Evan, I don't disagree that those things happen. But again, you know, we're talking about parents doing what is in their best interest. They're not necessarily doing what's in the best interest of the child. And like I said, 50-50 custody, it's a false sense of I've done the best I can do. And the reality is you've far from doing the best, far. Because the best, yeah, go ahead.
I want to agree with you, but the deck is stacked. Because again, what your situation that you brought, it's somewhat of an anomaly where people can say, you know what, we're going to do what's best. And even yours went sideways a little bit, just a little bit, but it came back and you were able to right the ship. But so many people, they're not able to right the ship because, again, that whole strategy, the picture's hung. And again, this is way more often than you would think because people do voting. It doesn't matter what it is. People do what's best, what's in their best interest. You know what? I'm going to make sure he can't get the child so that I can make sure my baby is loved and nurtured. And in their mind, they feel like they're doing what's best for the child when you, like you said, 100% for themselves.
Right. Well, no. And again, I don't disagree that that's what people do. You know, I'm only pointing out it's not in the best interest of the child. And there's a false sense of if I get 50-50 custody, I've done enough. And the reality,
but we don't have anything else, though. We don't have anything.
That's not true.
When you start off,
that's not true. That's not true.
So lay down the strategy so these people know. Lay down the strategy so they know how to get there.
But again, you know, if you ask a scientist for a solution, he's gonna give you a scientific answer. If you ask a pastor, well, you know where I'm going. I'm going back to God calling Adam and saying, "Where are you?" And Adam comes out and he's naked and he says, "You know, I hid because I was naked." And God said, "Who told you you were naked?" And Adam's answer is, "That woman you gave me. She deceived me and gave me of the fruit, and I did eat." And God said, "Did you eat the fruit that I told you not to eat?" And God punished Adam because Adam tried to blame two people for his faults. He tried to blame God, and then he tried to blame the woman. And what the problem is, we don't have men that are willing to take responsibility for what they set in motion in the first place. And they're so busy deflecting and trying to justify their own action or inaction. And they're willing to blame everything on the woman. Now, the woman is doing that too, but we're not on this forum, we're not talking to women about women, Lala excluded. We're talking to men about men. And you can no longer, or at least not to me, you cannot blame the woman for what you do and what you don't do. It's still you have to control yourself. And what you bring to any relationship depends on you. It's not just about what you do, it's about how you react to what is done to you. And so, that's my take on it. And again, as a man of God, it's all about being patient, loving, kind, long-suffering. And Jesus said, no man takes my life, I lay it down. Pontius Pilate said, I find no fault in him. And so as a man of God, I encourage you to be like Christ to that woman, and there'd be no fault found in you. Now, that may be naive in a court setting, but that's the answer you're going to get from a pastor. If you ask me again, I'll tell you the same.
Hey, Pastor, and I get that. And guess what? I'm going to love 100%. I'm going to be loving towards this young lady, but she looks at it as a threat. You're not with me anymore, and you're with this hussy over here. So you are not going to see your children because, again, it's not what I do. It's what's being done. Now, I can control me, like you said, 100%. I can control what I do, how I love, what's inside me. But once that table is turned and I have to report to someone else, not through any doing of my own, but through her saying this and this and this, and we go to that court, and you went to the same court, and it had nothing to do with how wonderful and dynamic and how loving and Christian you were. It just came that you are the man.
Well, I'm talking about the court. Again, I'm not talking about the court. I'm talking about you and what comes from you. And again, I'm at a disadvantage when I talk about your relationship because you know more about it than I do. So I have to talk about it. I have to talk about it in the abstract. And I'm saying that, for example, the relationship my son's mother and I have now, and I'm talking about very recently, I just wish I had thought of this even 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And that is, I just have recently decided that it is pointless to find fault with her. I do my best to never criticize her, and I do my best to sing her praises, okay? And the only person I'm willing to be critical of is myself. And that's even to the extent of how do I respond to her. And all of our conversations are not pleasant, but we had an episode recently where she called me on the phone to tell me something about my son, and she said, "This is your fault." And I said, "It is, and I'm so sorry. I take full responsibility." It just diffused the whole thing, And do I believe in every way it's my fault 100%? Of course not. But as a man, I'm Adam in the wilderness, God calling me saying, "Where are you?" And the question for me as I look at my challenges with my son is, where was I? And the answer is, I wasn't where I should have been, which is in that home, leading that family. And I understand you can't be there if the relationship has gone bad, but I believe I could have stayed there if I had made it my priority. But I was concerned about my happiness, my peace, my well-being. I was the host of Common View, and I knew the babes was going to start rolling in fast. And so I said, look, this is not working. I need to get out of this home so that I don't be a cheater or an adulterer. And so that's what expedited our breakup for me. And so I'm suggesting that I wish 10 years ago I had thought, wow, just don't criticize her. Don't point the finger at her. Jesus hung on the cross. He said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Jesus never criticized the very people who were crucifying him. And those are Christian values. And I'm saying that as men, we have to agree with God and not blame other people for when we choose not to. And again, I don't know your situation, so I'm not.
No, I'm not talking. And I was speaking from the abstract as well. So now that you decided that you're not going to stand up, you're going to take it on the chin, you're going to turn the other cheek and then turn the cheek again, and then maybe throw your pants down and let them spank those cheeks too. Are you an effective leader for your family now?
I believe that, you can characterize it that way if you want to. I ain't got no problem with that, because Jesus said, "No man takes my life, I lay it down." And so if you're talking about my pride and taking it on the cheek and turning the other cheek and pull my pants down, listen, nobody is doing anything to me that I don't allow. And I just believe that as a man, my job is to love his mother in front of him. and love her in a way that he can see it. And again, we ain't hanging out, we ain't going out to dinner, we ain't chopping it up on the phone, but prayerfully, how do I begin to allow him to see that I have the love of God for his mother? How can I make him see that? And I haven't even really come to that conclusion yet of how I'm going to do that. But just one of the ways was stop criticizing his mother, stop blaming stuff on her, and blame it on you. You're the man. You know, don't be Adam blaming God and the woman for what you did or didn't do. Take responsibility. Go ahead.
Excuse my interruption, Brother Pat.
No, go ahead.
Lala, do you agree with this, that men, do you think it would make more of a difference if we stepped up and said, it is my responsibility and I do need to just be here 100%? Do you think that would make a difference in cases like yours?
In cases like mine, that's a little bit different. So I'll answer that in two parts. In cases like mine, no, because it was, and it still is, high conflict. And so the overall goal is the ability where the other spouse needs to blame someone. And they don't want to take responsibility and they don't want to be accountable. And so, you know, you're talking about a dynamic where I did do that, Mr. Barry. I was nice, I took it to the chin, but at the end of the day, the other person wanted revenge. They, you know, they don't want to be accountable for the conflict and the discord.
I'm talking about the man, though. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm not talking about what you should do. My expectation, like God, is on the man. I'm not saying you should take anything on the chin. You should make any sacrifices. If we had a panel full of women and this was a woman's forum, I'd have different things to say. But I'm saying to the man up. Lead your family, lead your household, lead your marriage, and in the event of a divorce, lead that, whatever that's called, lead it and lead it by example, and have, you know, the onus is on the man, and that's maybe where the courts are coming in and putting more responsibility on the man, but I believe that's where it ought to be.
Well, let me interject. And I always speak honestly, and people just can't deal with the real. In actuality, in my case, the court stopped me from being a father to my children. The court did everything they could to vilify me. The officers of the court, which are the attorneys, were corrupt. They were caught lying on record, and then the judge would say, well, he's not on record. He's simply counsel for your ex. But the attorneys were lying. The sheriffs were helping them, and I'm not ever going to be silent about that. In my case, I was an excellent father and doing everything I could to be there for my children, and the court actually stopped me. Attorneys got together, the officers of the court, and the judges helped them. They talked in chambers. They did everything they could in every way to stop me from being in my children's lives, and they're still successful today.
Two things, Evan. Number one, I'll say to you the same thing I say to the other brother. I'm at a disadvantage talking about your relationship and what happened in your case because I don't know as much about it as you do. Let me interject real quick. It's not about my relationship. I'm simply talking about the court. No, I've never said anything against ex-wife or my relationship. Right, but I'm telling you, okay, again, I can't even begin to speak on it or even respond to it because I don't know the facts. And I'm not naive enough to believe that there aren't biases depending on who you talk to. I promise you, if you talk to my ex-wife, she tells you some things about me, you can be like, wow, that's Lester. And then you come talk to me, and I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound like you. So if we're only talking to one person, there's really just no way to know what is actually accurate. And I mean that in no disrespectful way. But I'm saying that everyone, this is humanity. Everyone feels that their case is different. And I'm not saying yours isn't. But there's a whole lot of people who feel, in my case, it's different, and it's really not different in your case. There's some fundamental principles of what it means to be a man that we have to own up to. And I promise you, if someone come to me 15 years ago and said to me the things I'm saying right now, had somebody said this to me 20 years ago, I would have said, no, man, my case is different. I would have done the same thing. It took me walking with God intimately for 20 years to realize that I'm Adam in the garden and I'm blaming Eve for what I did. Okay, so again, I don't mean that in any type of disrespectful way.
And let me tell you something. I'm a man just like you are. We're from the same place. I believe in stepping up and taking responsibility in every way. But realistically speaking, and this is why I deal with Lala and Chidenity, is because the court does things to separate families. They don't do things that's in the best interest of the children, and they have to be called out on that. If the court was actually non-biased in my case, my children would be seeing me right now. If the court actually said, let's work this out together, my children would be in my life and they would be happier and healthier. I don't blame my ex-wife. And I agree with you that in certain instances, I should have been more of a husband to her and more of a father and stepping up. But her and I decided as two adults that this didn't work out. I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. If you want to go to counseling, we can go. She said, I don't want to go to counseling. I said, so then you want to get a divorce? She said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. I said, it's time. Excellent. We worked it all out. Then the next day, the police were in my house ready to shoot and kill me. That was a strategy, not her strategy. That was the attorney's strategy who gave her that strategy. And what confirms it to this day, brother pastor, that attorney's family contacts me and says, eventually, we're going to find a way to stop our brother from doing the wrong that he's doing in the courts because he's corrupt. We're going to find a way to bring him down. We're going to help you. And they apologized for the wrong that he has done to me and my family. And I would show the world the text messages. They're right here and they're current. They just contacted me. This has nothing to do with my ex-wife, except she went along with it.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, and what I'm saying has nothing to do with you or that situation you just explained. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't exceptions to the rule, and yours very well may be one. But I think, as a rule, what most people think is irreconcilable differences are actually not. They just don't want to reconcile, and I believe that who suffers in that situation is the child, and it's because the parents and the fathers who I criticize mostly. They believe they're doing enough if they could just get 50-50 custody. And in the end of the day, kids are just not wired that way. And again, if you got 50-50 custody and you found a way to love your kid's mother, it would be different. But most of us, we kind of we rest on our laurels once we get that 50-50 custody, and we don't think we have to go that extra mile.
Lala, in this strategy that the court has, or that these attorneys have, these officers of the court, is this something that is just purely monetary based, you think?
It is monetary driven, you know, and again, you have to keep in mind that, you know, a lot of these strategies, they're taught, the first, second year of law school. The first thing they teach them is to get into family law. They tell them to get into family law. They tell them to get into workers' comp. They tell them to even do bankruptcy. Why? Because it's going to be a quick payout. It's going to be a consistent payout. And they're constantly taking on these cases without considering the fact that they've never been married themselves, that they don't even have children. And so I think when we look at Mr. Barry's situation versus Mr. Rockmore's, even your situation, we're talking conflict versus consciousness. So the justice system doesn't always have a conscience. They're not always principle minded. So they're not going to consider biblical principles, unfortunately. But I do respect, Mr. Barry, your accountability, because that is something that is needed. And that is something that, you know, it can diffuse conflict. But the level of consciousness for the other side to receive, well, that remains to be seen, even to this day. So the only thing I can tell you is that these attorneys, guardian ad litems, attorney ad litems, judges, they are already preset for this to be a constant money-making machine. They're going to bring the conflict. And in the end, the conflict is really stemming out of fear, rejection, or whatever happened within the relationship that the child has nothing to do with anyway. But you have to get to a place of maturity, just like Mr. Barry said, and understand what you could have done differently. Just because you have an order in place does not dictate how much contribution you can give your child. What happens is what you can resolve together and come together if you can. If you can't, you got to work with what you have, and that's all you can do.
Evan, not to be repetitive, but I'm not going to be repetitive. I promise you I'm not.
Go ahead.
Just an example. When you was trying to get, not you personally, talking to my brothers, when you was trying to get those draws, you never missed a birthday. You never missed a Valentine's Day. You never missed a Christmas because you wanted them draws. And now that you're divorced and it's 50-50 custody, you could care less about that woman's birthday. You couldn't care less about making sure she has a gift on Christmas or Mother's Day. Or, I mean, maybe Mother's Day, there might be some exception. But the reality is we were motivated by sex more than we're motivated by doing what is healthy for our child. I believe I should still be reaching out to my son's mother on Mother's Day. I should still be doing it on her birthday. I should still send a present over there on Christmas. And that's if we never talk. There just should be some gesture from me showing her that I love her as a human being. That's if we never even lay eyes on each other. Just on the human level, my son's father sent this gesture. And if I have to send it through her husband, I'll send it through him. But this separation and this compartmentalism that we've gotten into, it doesn't help the child. It's not in the child's best interest. And it's not in the best interest.
Well,
and it's
hold
not
on
in the best
for a
interest
second,
of Black.
John. Hold on.
Wait, and it's not in the best interest of Black culture. It's not in the best interest of Black society. It's not in the best interest of Black families. It's not in the best interest of your children, your children's children, and their children.
And with that being said, brother pastor, hold on, John. With that being said, I need to own up to something. I looked at my ex-wife when the police were in my house, and I said, "You did this? You lied on me? And you're having me arrested?" And they wouldn't even tell me why I was being arrested. They didn't tell me that I was being arrested, but they took me out of my own home in handcuffs after they were threatening to shoot and kill me over something I didn't know anything about. That got the ball rolling in court. That was the game. Of course, I had never done anything, so it was thrown out of court immediately. DA reject, the whole nine. The bottom line is, I told her, I will never speak to you again, because you could have had me murdered. And my heart is still hardened from that situation. So what you're saying is, if I soften my heart, it might make a difference and turn around and support this woman who tried to have me murdered?
No, I don't think you should do it for the difference that it might make. I think you should do it, and again, you're talking to a pastor. I think you should do it because it's the right thing to do according to the values that I believe that we say we have. Your values, I learned this weekend, your values are what you do. They're not what you say they are, it's what you do. And if you say you're a Christian, then your values ought to reflect a willingness to turn the other cheek, to not be judgmental, to be patient, loving, kind, and long-suffering, and to put the will of God first. And so, again, you don't do it for the difference it would make. You do it because it's the man who you are. You're a Christian man of God. Start acting like one. And that's even in the face of your hills and your valleys and your rough places and your challenges.
Powerful words. With that being said, time just flies by, John. I'm sorry. Time just flies by. We just
have
a couple of seconds. No, that was amazing, brother pastor. We're going to have to talk further, but without further ado, I just need you guys to quickly, our time is nearing the end. I'd like you guys to let them know how they can reach you. Maybe someone needs to seek counseling. Brother pastor, tell them how they can reach you and get in contact.
Well, COVID has caused us to lose our building in Lakewood. So if you show up in Lakewood, John, you ain't gonna find us. But you can find me online at Bible Believers Missionary Baptist Church. You can send a message. And you can also go to my page, Lester Berry, inspirational comedian, and Barry is spelled B-A-R-R-I-E, and you can leave me a message there, or you can go to lesterberry.com, also B-A-R-R-I-E, and you can reach out to me there.
And thank you, Pastor Barry. Lala, tell them how they can reach you. And this is Parental Alienation Month. Tell them how they can reach you and get further information.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, today is Parental Alienation Awareness Day. I can be reached at www.chidenity.org and also at Instagram, Chidenity, and YouTube at Chidenity. Thank you.
Mr. Rockmore, last but not least, tell them how they can reach you and save you a point for Brother Pastor. Go ahead,
Part
Mr.
two. Part two. You can, number one, you can always reach me here at M.E.R. Please like and subscribe to this page. You can always get all of us here. If you need to get me directly, it's john@rockmoreentertainment.com, and I will always answer everybody's question.
And my name is Evan Lionel at Evan Lionel 2898 on IG, Evan Lionel on Facebook, or you can go to the M.E.R page if you have any questions. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as Facebook Men's Equal Rights page. Please join us. And we'd like to thank you for tuning in tonight for this week's edition of M.E.R. We'll see you next Sunday. God bless all of you. Brother Pastor, thank you for
Send me the link.
today.
I need the link.
Okay. Thank you. Right. That is our show this evening. We'll see you next Sunday.